is a production of West Virginia Public Broadcasting.
Major funding for Doctors on Call is provided by a grant from the Milan Charitable Foundation. Other funding is provided by the Health Plan, a health maintenance organization serving West Virginia and Ohio since 1979. By the Center for Organ Recovery and Education, supporting Volunteers for Life through organ, tissue, and corneal donation. By Health South Rehabilitation Hospital, serving your rehabilitation needs in Morgantown and Fairmont. And by the faculty and staff of the Robert C. Byrd Health Sciences Center of West Virginia University. Welcome to Doctors on Call. Tonight's topic, black lung disease. Two experts are here to answer your questions. Now here's your host, Dr. John Phillips.
Good evening. About 1 in every 20 coal miners in the United States has some evidence of black lung disease. It's a chronic occupational lung disease that primarily affects men over 50 who worked in mines for many years, breathing in the carbon and silica in coal dust. But new studies show it may be affecting younger miners as well. What are the symptoms of black lung? How is it diagnosed? Is there a cure or a treatment? We'll get answers to those questions and more tonight from our two guests, Dr. Carl Wernz, an occupational medicine physician in the Department of Community Medicine at WVU, and Dr. Anna Allen, also an occupational medicine physician at WVU, who specializes in work-related injuries. If you'd like to ask our guests a question, give us a call. Our phone lines are open now. Carl, black lung is a serious form of pneumoconiosis. Oh, I didn't blow it. That was good. What is that?
Well, pneumoconiosis is any of the lung diseases that are based upon scar tissue. It's kind of a family of diseases. The most common ones would be black lung, silicosis, which is kind of affiliated with black lung, and asbestosis. They're the three diseases. And all three of those, you end up with where there should be normal lung tissue that exchanges air, exchanges oxygen, you end up instead with little bits of scar tissue that takes up the place. Now, a little bit of that's not a problem, but if you slowly accumulate that over time, you can kind of run out of lung tissue to perform the normal functions of exchanging gases.
Okay. Well, you know, growing up, we heard a lot about black lung disease. You would think that in this day and age, with the measures that can be taken to protect the miners, that it would decrease. But is that true? Is it actually decreasing in incidence?
Actually, in the last 40 years, give or take, it has the incidence of black lung has decreased. And as of, around 2000, 1990, 2000, it had reached very low levels, and they thought they were on the verge of wiping this out as a disease. And unfortunately, there have been some areas of the country where this has not been the case. It has come down a bit, but it is now increasing in rate from what it was. And
the area that you're talking about would be the hot spot, or the so-called hot spot, which is down. It's an area in southern West Virginia, more or less south of 64. Eastern Kentucky and Western Virginia, where they have that coal area, seems to be having an increasing rate of having black lung. It was going down for a number of years, and then around 2000 started going back up in that area. We're not quite sure why that's happening, although one of the theories or thoughts is that it may be because a lot of the coal in that area is short. The coal seam may only be 20 inches high, and the mining machines now have gotten bigger, so they don't fit in the 20-inch seam. They have to buy a larger machine and cut out more of the sandstone and other rocks that are not coal above it to be able to fit the machines through. When you think about black lung, a lot of the black lung is really the silica is a big deal, whether it's the silica that's within the coal or silica that's in the sandstone. So cutting that can really increase the exposure to silica and increase the risk of disease.
So it's not necessarily just being around the coal that's causing the damage, it's the rock as well.
Correct. Miners today are, like as he said, working in shorter seams, and also they're, working longer hours with shorter breaks in between. And this, in combination with the silica and not being able to clear it from the lung, increases the risk of getting black lung or even silicosis. A lot of times they look the same or very similar on X-ray.
Well, with all the safety measures you think that we'd have in place in this day and age, you think it'd be getting better. But we were talking before the show about certain risks to miners, certain types of mines that increase your risk of getting black lung. Can you tell the audience about that?
Sure. There's as I mentioned, the shorter mines it's harder to have good airflow. They try to organize a mine so that there's enough airflow at the face. That's where they're cutting the coal, so that it'll blow all the bad stuff away from the workers, so they don't have to wear protective equipment while they're doing their normal jobs. Now, people working at the face, so in most places that would be whoever it is that's cutting the coal off the face, and then sometimes roof bolters or other people that are nearby have the greatest risk. But they're working with the freshest cut coal. Other things that may increase the risk are people that are working, as I said, in the short coal, and also also people who are working in areas where their coal is being transferred. There's recently manipulated coal, whether it's been broken into smaller pieces or whatever, seems to have a higher risk than coal that's been broken a long time ago.
Okay, well, certainly there's a lot of miners in West Virginia. What are some of the symptoms that they should be looking for black lung disease?
Well, classically, the cough is usually one of the first symptoms miners will complain of, is just having a chronic cough.
Is it dry cough or?
Sometimes, but usually, and sometimes it's sort of a wet cough. They may or may not be able to cough up any phlegm, and then it's progressive shortness of breath are the main two symptoms that miners will complain of, and usually have them looking for treatment. They'll sometimes get chronic bronchitis, or mild, possibly pneumonias. But
eventually, if it got bad enough, you could even have heart failure from increased pulmonary pressures. Or
you can, the kind of what we call cor pulmonale. That's the medical name for that, where there's kind of a backup of pressure from the lungs into the heart, can also occur in more advanced forms of black lung.
Okay. We're talking about black lung tonight with two experts. Please give us a call. The number is on the screen. So is it definitely going to be progressive? If you have it, it will get worse, or is there any way we could slow it down or even prevent it from getting worse?
Once you get the scar tissue that's already there doesn't go away. The secret in black lung is to identify people who are susceptible. Now, like many other diseases, black lung is a disease that affects different individuals differently. And to help with that, most of the mines offer the miners an X-ray about every 5 years to look for evidence of black lung. If they're getting evidence of black lung on their X-ray that meets a certain threshold, then those people are eligible to transfer into a low dust job to get out of the dust, because of maybe 20 or 30% of the population is susceptible to black lung. The other people don't get it. So you can have people,
Really?
And the idea is identify those susceptible individuals and get them out of the dust.
So there's a genetic predisposition to getting black lung?
That appears to be the case, although I don't think they've identified the DNA that does that.
So I think a lot of families have coal miners from generation to generation. Then if grandpa got black lung, do you treat the dad and the grandkids any differently? Do you check their X-rays more often, or?
Well, not unless they're working in the mines. They would just be they would just be in the normal protocol. It's about every 5 years that they tend to offer that the mines are supposed to offer the X-rays to the miners. And then, as I said, the program run by NIOSH would then have them the opportunity to transfer into a low dust job if there's evidence for black lung on their X-ray.
Okay. All right. So once we know someone has black lung and they have some of these symptoms, we talked about it earlier, there's not a whole lot of medications per se to give them. What are some of the things that you can do to make someone feel better?
Well, once people start developing symptoms of black lung, the cough, shortness of breath, it's usually treated like emphysema. People are put on inhalers, and in severe cases, sometimes oxygen. It's also recommended that if they are still working in a job where they are exposed to a lot of dust, that they transfer to a different position, if they can. That's not always an option in some parts of the state. If they smoke, we advise them to stop, because that is not going to help their black lung at all.
Right.
And also if they can avoid being around people that smoke.
Sure.
Probably not a bad thing either.
Yeah, we talked about that too. This is certainly not an endorsement to smoke. It doesn't directly affect the black lung, but having both on top of each other are...
Yeah, that's absolutely correct. They're different disease processes even within the lung, but when people lose lung function from black lung and then additionally lose lung function from smoking, they can end up with just, they're kind of whittling away at a stick from both ends, and you can run out. I mean, we're born with a lot of extra lung capacity. I mean, there's many people, they've taken out a whole lung and they still do fine. And these people are kind of working at both ends, taking away lung capacity. They're different diseases that both cause loss. So clearly not smoking would be a big deal. I have the opportunity to talk to people some people have the more advanced form of black lung, and when I asked them about that, none of the people who are still working that have this advanced black lung, some of them can still work, none of them smoke. 100% so far, and that's in 10 years of doing that work.
Is that because they feel bad or they're just smart?
I think it's because they're people who were never smokers, and their black lung can progress more before it gets their lung function gets so bad that it takes them out of work.
Wow. Okay. So there are even some folks it gets bad enough that would require a lung transplant. But we were talking about if it's recognized at first, would you start with your primary care physician? And would you need to go to a subspecialist for treatment?
Well, if a coal miner is having trouble breathing, my recommendation is start with your local doctor or your primary care physician. If they're concerned that it's related to your work or to black lung or some other cause, they may refer you on to a specialist. Pulmonologists, the lung specialists, are in West Virginia are all well versed in identifying and treating black lung if they need to go to a specialist for that. But usually once it's been diagnosed and the treatment's been started, they can begin, the primary care doctor can usually do the treatment in their local office.
Very good. We're talking about black lung today. If you have questions for our experts, please give us a call. And we have our first caller. It's Larry from Boyd County. Larry, welcome to Doctors on Call.
Thank you.
Go ahead with your questions.
My question is, I never worked in the mines, but I worked in an automotive machine shop. And I've done a lot of head work digging out this black carbon from the intake valves. And when I was young, I had problem with my sinus, so I had to breathe through my mouth. But after I've done this machine shop work for 30 years, and when I go home, I'd hack and cough up this black phlegm. Plus, I come down with seem like pneumonia every April. I come down with double pneumonia. And I'd have to take penicillin, not penicillin, but
sure.
The pill.
So, Larry, you haven't been diagnosed with black lung disease, but you're wondering if you could have developed it from another cause?
I could develop black lung from that carbon when I was cleaning out.
That's an interesting question.
Okay, well, it's an interesting question. I'm going to try and give you the best answer that I can, which is that black lung itself is mostly related to the silica part of the coal. There's a lot. I won't say that you can't get lung disease or sinus problems with it, but they're a little different from black lung, from the exposures that you described. When they get carbon from other places, and one of the things we were talking about was carbon black. You can make it two different ways to make carbon black, which is kind of a black pigment. You can make it from coal, and then those people do have some risk for getting pneumoconiosis because they're grinding up coal. You can also get it. You can also make carbon black by burning oil, and I think that's pretty close to what he was doing on the heads and the engines he was talking about. And those people don't really have an increased risk for black lung. There may be other health effects, but not black lung.
Well, you talked about different forms of pneumoconiosis, and maybe he was exposed to a different insult, maybe not truly carbon like in the coal mines, but something else from the engine.
Right, and he's working with hydrocarbons. I mean, he's got all the things that are in gasoline and oil as it's been burned and all that, and certainly you can have certainly irritation from those in a variety of different areas. And if you had that day in and day out, that might be, that could certainly cause some problems.
Okay. Well, Larry, we wish you the best of luck. Our next caller is Mike from Gallia County, Ohio. Mike, welcome to Doctors on Call.
Thank you. And my question is, my mother's worked at a coal-burning power plant for like 15 years, and she's never been a smoker, and her lungs is like real dark. Would that be considered black lung?
Does she work out in the production facility there, or she?
She's worked through the whole plant and just about every department where she's been there so long.
Okay. Well, at the coal-fired power plants, they do. Obviously, bring in coal. They pulverize to make a powder out of it to burn, and there is potential risk for that. For black lung could result from that exposure. It's not real common because usually they do that in a very enclosed environment, but it's possible. I guess the recommendation would be to talk to her doctor about that and see if there's evidence on an X-ray for black lung.
Very interesting.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
No, go ahead, sir.
Okay. So what are some other things that these miners can do to protect themselves? What are the federal regulations, or some of them, required by the companies to keep their employees safe?
I guess
because I asked you before the show, why don't we just make them all wear masks?
Yeah.
Yeah. A respirator would help, and the problem is that nobody wants to wear a respirator full time. They just they're hot and bothersome, and so they use them only in places where you have to have one. So, like in most mines, the air where most of the people are working most of the time is clean enough that you don't need one. And if you have to go certain places like downwind from where they're cutting the coal, you may need to wear a respirator. But they try to keep people from having to do that unless something breaks. It's in the wrong place. You may have to do that for a short period of time. The protective stuff that the mines do is a couple things. The first thing is that when they cut the coal, they spray it with water while they're doing it to keep the amount of dust down. The second thing that they do is to have a good flow of air past the face. If you ever visit inside a mine, you'll see the foreman or the fire boss down there with a little wind gauge that they're holding up to the face to see how many cubic feet a minute of air are going past there. Those are the two biggest efforts that they're doing. Also, a lot of the equipment is now designed so that it will take the dust away from the miner. We talked before about roof bolters, and the roof bolting machines now, the drill that they drill up into the ceiling with has a vacuum in the middle of the drill bit to kind of suck the dust back in instead of it falling down onto the breathing space of the miner.
But some of it does.
Right.
And directly, what's happening at the level of the lung? One of our callers asked, how exactly do you get it? Certainly you breathe it in.
Right.
But then what's happening in our lungs?
The dust settles in at the end airways of the lung, and there are cells in the body that try to get rid of the foreign material, and a lot of times it can't. So what happens is that those cells keep working at it. Eventually they die and break open, and the material that the cell is using to try to dissolve what's left of the dust is actually, it damages the lung tissue. Now there's also some other mechanisms that the lung uses to try to clear the dust. When you inhale it, it sometimes settles on the way down, and there's little like hair-like structures in the lung, and a lining of mucus that help move the material back out. So that's the part that people can clear overnight, if they have a break in between shifts. But it's the stuff that gets deep down in the lungs that causes most of the damage in the long term.
Okay. Thanks. Our next caller is William from Fayette County, West Virginia. William, welcome to Doctors on Call.
Thank you very much.
Go ahead with your question.
My question is, why is black lung disease called a disease why is it an occupational disease instead of an occupational injury?
Okay, it's a definition question. The way that all the compensation people divide this sort of thing is injuries occur in a short period of time. So usually minutes or at the very most hours. So the example is somebody broke their arm. They could say exactly what second the thing fell down and broke their arm, or when they fell out of the tree or whatever happened. So that would be an injury, happened very fast. A disease happens over time and tends to be cumulative. At least that's the way in occupational health, that's the separation used. So carpal tunnel, black lung, asbestosis, those are all things that develop over time. And it's years of, or a period of exposure, not measured in minutes or seconds.
Do we know how many years you need to be exposed before you develop it?
Oh.
Is it guaranteed that you will eventually develop it? Not necessarily.
Not necessarily. No. I mean, it depends on how much dust you're exposed to, the concentration and the time, over how many years, whether or not you've got a predisposition to developing, a reaction to the dust. So yeah, I mean, and then there are people that, have abnormalities on their chest X-ray but have no symptoms. So it's a variable reaction to the exposure.
Yeah, I kind of think of it that all of our bodies function a little bit differently, and some of us can clear the coal dust out of the lungs more efficiently. That person's much less likely to get black lung, who has a more efficient system for getting stuff out. The people who are either less efficient system at getting it out, or they have their body prefers to make scar tissue. And some people have diseases that cause that kind of a thing, or different ways their bodies put together that will make more scar tissue with the same exposure. Those are the people who are more likely to get black lung. So there's some genetic part to it, but the other part is, remember I mentioned that it's how fast you clear it out. If I work an 8-hour day, or a coal miner works an 8-hour day, and then they have 16 hours off before they go back and do that again, that works pretty well for your body being able to clear a lot of the coal dust out. Many of the miners today are working fewer shifts but longer. They're working 10, 12 hour, 4 10-hour shifts, or even 3 12-hour shifts underground. And that doesn't leave their body very much time to clear the dust out.
Well, do we have an idea of what percentage of miners are going to get black lung?
Well, I think the number, they talk about 5% would be an estimate for now. Now that's down from where it used to be at like 40%. Yeah. I mean, it's come down quite a bit. If you ignore the people around West Virginia, that hotspot that I was talking about earlier, the number gets down to be about 2%. Okay. But we have to, if you add them back in, it kind of pushes the average up because there's a lot of coal miners around here.
In our last couple of minutes, we'd also talked about this before. It's not a regular X-ray that you need to make the diagnosis of black lung. You need a special X-ray?
Well, it's a regular X-ray with a special interpretation. So it's just a regular X-ray from your back to your front, just one view, just that one view. But then it goes to a specialist who's been certified in reading those X-rays, looking for evidence of black lung. Somebody called a B reader. That's a specialty certification you can get as a physician.
And as occupational physicians and pulmonologists, you both specialize in black lung. You have a clinic, or is there a special clinic people should go to? Should they see a pulmonologist? Should they stick with their primary doctors?
I would say anybody who's concerned about that they could have black lung, start with a primary care doctor, but a pulmonologist, a lung specialist, is the place to go. And I said, across West Virginia, all the pulmonologists are going to be familiar with black lung, diagnosing it and treating people that have it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting. This is a pertinent topic to West Virginia, and hopefully some of the information that we gave to you this evening was helpful, and we appreciate you both for being here. So we've been talking about black lung disease with Dr. Carl Wernz and Dr. Anna Allen. Again, thank you both for being with us tonight. If you would like more information, please talk to your family doctor or visit our website at wviewhealthcare.com. For Doctors on Call, I'm Dr. John Phillips. Good night and good health.
Join us again next week for another edition of Doctors on Call. Major funding for Doctors on Call is provided by a grant from the Milan Charitable Foundation. Other funding is provided by the Health Plan, a health maintenance organization serving West Virginia and Ohio since 1979. By the Center for Organ Recovery and Education, supporting Volunteers for Life through organ, tissue, and corneal donation. By Health South Rehabilitation Hospital, serving your rehabilitation needs in Morgantown and Fairmont. And by the faculty and staff of the Robert C. Byrd Health Sciences Center of West Virginia University.
This has been a production of West Virginia Public Broadcasting.